Every man is given two paths, one of pursuit and one of purpose. The first is noisy, restless, and fueled by fear. The second is calm, deliberate, and grounded in power. Too many men trade their potential for approval, running toward what they should be attracting. But the man who knows his value doesn't chase, he builds, he leads, he draws all things to him through the silent strength of certainty. Today, I'll show you why stillness is not weakness, and how those who command themselves never have to chase anything or anyone. Power never runs, it waits, it draws, it commands. A masculine man understands that the most potent energy on earth is not found in motion, but in stillness. Think of the great leaders, inventors, pioneers of empires and industries. Were they frantic? Did they chase? Or did they radiate something so magnetic that everything and everyone they needed came to them? You see, the world responds not to neediness, but to certainty, to direction, to inner calm that speaks louder than noise. Men who chase lose, not because they're weak, but because chasing is an admission that says, I do not believe I'm enough. And that belief, it's repulsive. The masculine man moves like a mountain, not a leaf in the wind. He's immovable in purpose, anchored by vision and ruled by his values. He knows who he is, and because of that, he doesn't seek validation. He becomes the source of it. He doesn't run after opportunity, he prepares for it. He doesn't chase love, he embodies it. In every arena of life, business, relationships, influence, the man who learns to hold his frame, to remain still while others panic, to listen while others scream, wins. Why? Because stillness is a sign of mastery, and people follow those who have mastered themselves. But make no mistake, this kind of power isn't passive, it's intentional. The man who waits does not waste time. He builds, he sharpens his mind, he invests in his purpose, he grows in silence while the world is distracted by noise. And when the time comes to act, his impact is immediate. Power stands still not because it has nowhere to go, but because it knows everything comes to it. Stillness signals strength, noise signals lack. So let me ask you, are you chasing validation or cultivating value? Are you running toward what you think you need or becoming the man to whom it naturally flows? Because once you understand this law, you'll never chase again. Now, what happens when this inner power meets the force of action? What if stillness wasn't the end, but the beginning? Let's find out. There is a secret known only to men who win without running, a law most never learn because they're too busy doing what the world expects them to do, chase. But here's the truth. The law of intentional inaction is not about laziness. It's not about doing nothing. It's about doing the right thing at the right moment for the right reason and letting everything else go. A masculine man doesn't rush. He doesn't chase people, outcomes, or validation. He understands that timing is a weapon, and inaction, when chosen with purpose, is often more powerful than 1,000 frantic moves. Have you ever noticed how the man who speaks less commands more attention, or how the one who doesn't respond immediately holds more power in the room? That's not by accident. That's not weakness. That's control. Intentional inaction is the art of waiting without being passive. It's the practice of holding your line when the world wants you to bend. It's walking away from what doesn't align, not because you're afraid, but because you're focused. The masculine man knows that action driven by fear is useless. He doesn't move because he's scared to lose. He waits because he knows what's his cannot be taken. He holds back, not because he's uncertain, but because he sees further than those who rush. He acts when it counts, and when he does, his movement is felt. You see, the world is addicted to urgency. It celebrates speed, it praises hustle. But speed without direction is just a faster way to get lost. Intentional inaction is discipline. It's the strength to say, not now, It's the awareness to recognize when energy is better spent holding ground instead of making noise. It's how men of substance rise above the chaos while others get swallowed by it. The man who waits with purpose is a man who cannot be manipulated. He's not reactive, he's strategic. He doesn't panic, he pauses. He doesn't force, he flows. And when he does act, it's precise, it's effective, it's unforgettable, because he didn't chase the moment. He became the moment. Now let me ask you, if waiting on purpose is power, what happens when a man adds emotional control to that equation? Let's go deeper. Commanding without pursuit sounds impossible to some, but the truth is the men who influence nations, shift cultures, and shape destinies rarely pursue anything at all. They command, not with noise, not with force, but with presence. Because here's what most don't understand. Real power isn't loud. It doesn't knock on doors, beg for attention, or plead for recognition. Real power walks into a room, and the energy shifts. Not a word needs to be said. Everyone just feels it. How? Through internal authority. The masculine man governs himself first. His thoughts, his emotions, his desires, all under discipline. When a man rules within, the world begins to follow without. You see, pursuit is often fueled by a hidden fear. What if I don't get it? What if someone else beats me to it? What if I'm not enough? But commanding, that comes from certainty, from knowing if it's aligned with who I am, it will come. If it's not, I don't need it. The masculine man does not need the world to validate his worth. He does not negotiate his values for approval. He does not run after anything that requires him to shrink in order to receive. Instead, he builds value. He becomes the center of gravity. He doesn't pull people in, they're drawn to him. This is not arrogance. This is alignment. When a man operates in full alignment with his mission, his identity, and his standards, he becomes undeniable. He no longer persuades, he attracts. He doesn't explain, he embodies. Think about it. Who do people follow? The man who constantly proves himself, or the man who needs no proof? A man who chases approval lowers his value, but the man who stands firm, who leads with calm certainty, who knows where he's going and doesn't flinch, that man becomes a mirror for others. People begin to wonder, what does he know that I don't? And that question, that curiosity, that pull is how command replaces pursuit. You do not have to chase what you can magnetize. You do not have to speak louder, only with more purpose. And you do not need to be everywhere, just exactly where you are supposed to be. Now, what happens when a man who commands also understands the force of stillness? What happens when movement is no longer used to get, but to create? Let's uncover that next. Stillness is misunderstood. Most think it means doing nothing, waiting around, being passive. But the truth, stillness is not the absence of action. It's the presence of power. The kind of power that doesn't flinch, doesn't rush, and never begs. A masculine man understands this deeply. While the world moves in chaos, he remains grounded. While others react, he observes. While people scream for attention, he speaks only when his words carry weight. That's not weakness. That's not indecision. That's control. Because when a man becomes still, truly still, his mind sharpens. His energy concentrates. His presence begins to do the work that words and actions do. He becomes a force that can be felt, not just seen. Why does this matter? Because those who chase often move fast, but they move blind. They act out of anxiety, fear, insecurity. Their motion is noise. But the masculine man, he's still because he knows motion without meaning is waste. He doesn't move just to be seen. He moves when it matters, and never before. Stillness is strategic. It is the pause before the strike. It is the breath before the break. It is the discipline to wait. Not because he's afraid to act, but because he knows exactly when to act. And when he does, the impact is immediate. Stillness sends a message, a quiet signal that says, I do not chase, because I attract. I do not panic, because I prepare. I do not react, because I lead. A still man is not empty. He is full, full of intent, full of purpose, full of direction, and that's what draws others in. People trust what is grounded. They lean toward what is stable. They follow what does not move with every wind. And in a world that runs faster every day, the man who can remain still wins. He doesn't follow trends, he sets them. He doesn't chase success, he builds it. He doesn't force outcomes, he aligns with them, because stillness is magnetic. It tells the world, I know who I am, I know where I'm going. I don't need to prove it, I just need to be it. Now imagine this. What happens when stillness combines with unwavering direction? What happens when the man who stands still also knows exactly where he's headed? Let's explore that next. Dominion is never earned through desperation. It's taken, claimed, and held through direction, through clarity, through unshakable intent. Masculine energy doesn't plead, it doesn't beg, and it never chases. Why? Because a man with direction already has dominion over himself, over his path, and soon enough, over the results he seeks. You can't dominate life if you're constantly reacting to it. You can't lead anything, business, relationships, decisions, if you're swayed by every distraction that promises quick rewards or fleeting validation. The masculine man doesn't chase recognition because his actions speak. He doesn't ask for permission because his vision is already set. And he never operates from lack because his direction is rooted in purpose. Desperation is noisy, it scrambles, it grabs, it announces to the world, I don't have enough. Direction is silent. It moves in straight lines. It doesn't flick. It whispers, I already know where I'm going. The world will adjust. That's dominion, because once a man becomes internally guided, he no longer needs to control others. He simply controls himself. And that alone shifts the power dynamic in every room he enters. He isn't looking for a path. He is the path. His energy says, follow or fall behind. The truth is, people don't follow the loudest man. They follow the most certain, the one who's moving in a direction so focused, so clear, so true that it inspires action without a single word. So let me ask you, how can a man dominate anything if he can't direct himself? How can he lead others if his own mind is scattered, reactive, or lost in the chase? Desperation is the voice of a man disconnected from his purpose. Direction is the language of power. It says, I know what I'm building. I know who I am. I know what I'm willing to walk away from. That's the man who shapes his own world. Because while others drift with trends, emotions, or opinions, he builds foundations. While others chase status, he masters substance. And while others seek shortcuts, he becomes the standard. Dominion doesn't come to the man who wants everything. It comes to the man who only wants what aligns. And that man, he never chases. He doesn't have to. But here's where it gets deeper. What happens when direction turns into deliberate waiting? What happens when the man who knows where he's going chooses to pause? Let's open that door next. The man who waits with purpose wins. Not because he's slower, not because he lacks drive, but because he understands something the average man never will. Timing is power. And waiting is not weakness when it's done with intention. You see, most men are in a hurry to prove something. They chase opportunities. They chase people. They chase results. And in doing so, they lose their center. They forget that waiting, when aligned with purpose, is one of the most strategic moves a man can make. The masculine man is not in a race. He's not interested in instant gratification. He's not chasing the next trend or the next approval. He is deliberate. He waits not because he's unsure, but because he's watching, calculating, preparing, and when the right moment arrives, he strikes with precision. Waiting with purpose is not sitting still and hoping. It's building in silence. It's sharpening the mind. It's strengthening the foundation. While others are scrambling for shortcuts, the man who waits with purpose is dangerous. not because he's aggressive, but because he's aware. He knows the cost of moving too soon. He knows that power comes not just from what you do, but when you do it. And he never acts out of fear. He acts from vision. Ask yourself, what does it say when a man can wait? In a world that constantly tells him to rush, it says control. It says clarity. It says confidence. He is not pushed by pressure. He is pulled by purpose. That's why when the world sees only delay, he sees development. When others see waiting as weakness, he sees it as weaponry. Because he's not just waiting, he's preparing. He's becoming undeniable, quietly. And when the time comes, the one who waited on purpose moves with impact, not noise, impact. Because his power wasn't built in public, it was earned in private, through patience, discipline, and vision. The truth is, men who chase act fast and burn out faster, but the man who waits with purpose, he becomes inevitable. Now, here's the question: what does a man like that become when he adds emotional control to his silence? What happens when calm isn't just in his actions, but in his mind? Let's unlock that next. Emotional control is the crown of the masculine mind, not suppression, not denial, but command. The kind of command that allows a man to move through fire without showing smoke. The kind that keeps his voice calm while others shout. That lets him decide while others react. Because when a man loses control of his emotions, he loses everything. His clarity, gone. His respect, compromised. His power, given away. But the masculine man knows better. He knows that in the game of life, the one who controls his emotions controls the game. Now let's be clear. Emotional control doesn't mean he feels nothing. It means he masters what he feels. He doesn't let anger lead. He doesn't let fear decide. He doesn't let excitement cloud his vision. He feels it all, but he responds with strategy, not impulse. Think about it. How many men chase because their emotions tell them, you'll lose her if you don't act now? How many overextend, overpromise, overreach because they're emotionally triggered to prove something? And what happens every time? They pay the price. But the man with emotional control, he knows pressure is a test. He knows the world will try to provoke him, rattle him, push him off his path. And that's exactly why he trains his mind, not to avoid emotion, but to rule it. A calm man is a dangerous man, because calm isn't passive, it's prepared. He listens before he speaks. He breathes before he moves. He chooses his words like weapons. And he speaks with weight. While others waste energy on emotion, he channels it into action. That's why he doesn't chase. Because chasing is born from panic, from fear, from insecurity, all emotional reactions disguised as action. But he's built differently. He knows how to sit with discomfort. He knows how to face rejection without folding. He knows how to hold the line when everything in him wants to react. That's what sets him apart. Because when storms rise, people don't look for the loudest man. They look for the stillest one. The one who isn't shaken. The one who holds space. The one who decides while others dissolve. And that man, he doesn't just survive, he leads. So let me ask you, what happens when emotional control meets self-respect so high it refuses to chase even what he wants most? What does a man become when he values himself above everything he desires? Let's answer that next. Self-respect is the line no real man will cross. Not for love, not for money, not for validation, not even for what he desires most. Because a masculine man understands something the world tries to make him forget. You don't win by getting everything you want. You win by never losing yourself while trying to get it. You see, chasing often begins when a man believes what's out there is more valuable than what's already within him. He believes he has to earn attention, deserve love, convince others of his worth, and so he lowers his standards. He compromises his voice. He bends just a little, hoping it'll be enough. But the man with high self-respect, He never bends just to fit. He never chases what would require him to shrink to receive. He never begs for space where his presence should already be honored, because his self respect is not conditional. It's not based on outcome, it's non negotiable. This kind of man would rather walk alone in truth than be surrounded in illusion. He would rather lose a moment than lose himself in it. He knows exactly who he is, and that's why he never chases. A man with self respect doesn't fear rejection. He respects himself enough to say, if it's not aligned, it's not mine. He doesn't manipulate to be chosen because he's already chosen himself. And that kind of energy, it's rare, it's powerful, it's magnetic. You can feel it in how he talks, in how he walks, in how he handles disrespect, not with anger, but with absence, because he doesn't need to fight for what already belongs to him, and he doesn't chase what must be begged to stay. He protects his time, he guards his energy, he knows his value, and when a man truly knows his value, he becomes unavailable to anything that requires him to forget it. That's why people are drawn to him. That's why they lean in. Not because he's loud, but because he's anchored. He could want something deeply and still let it go if it threatens his self respect. He could admire someone and still walk away if they don't meet his standard. Because he doesn't need to be chosen. He already chose himself. And there is nothing more powerful than a man who refuses to trade dignity for desire. But here's what's even more powerful. What happens when a man like that, anchored in self respect, decides to master the energy he gives to the world? What happens when he stops chasing and starts directing? That's where we're headed next. Energy is not given, it's invested. Every word, every glance, every step you take costs you. And a masculine man knows he doesn't pay that price unless there's value in the exchange. Why? Because he understands that energy is currency. And the man who chases spends it recklessly. He gives his focus away to anything that flashes. He pours his time into people who drain him. He runs after situations that offer no return. And when it's all gone, he wonders why he feels empty. But the man who commands himself, he guards his energy like gold. He doesn't just respond to the world, he directs how and where his power flows. He knows exactly who, what, and where deserves a piece of him. And everything else, it gets silence. He's not cold, he's intentional. He doesn't entertain chaos, confusion, or competition, because his energy is not a donation, it's an investment. That's why people feel the difference. When he speaks, it's with purpose. When he moves, it's with clarity. When he shows up, it matters. This man never chases because he knows that chasing is a leak in power. It drains his fire, it scatters his focus. It tells the world, I don't believe what I have is enough, so I'll exhaust myself to prove it. Not him. He knows what he brings to the table, and if the table doesn't recognize it, he'll build his own. He's not afraid to pull his energy back, to detach, to disappear from anything that pulls him away from his mission. Because his power doesn't come from how much he gives, it comes from how well he directs. He can be in a room, say nothing, and still shift the energy. Why? Because he is the energy, and he knows that every time he gives it without return, he weakens his scent. But every time he chooses where it flows, he becomes stronger. He doesn't chase admiration, he attracts it through discipline. He doesn't chase connection, he creates it through alignment. He doesn't chase opportunity, he magnetizes it by staying ready. Energy, to this man, is sacred. And when he walks away, it's not punishment, it's protection. Now think about this. What happens when a man who controls his energy also masters detachment from outcomes? What happens when even results can't shake his core? Let's step into that power now. Detachment from outcomes is the quiet strength that sets a man apart. It's the freedom to act without needing every action to give you a specific result. It's the power to create without the fear of failure, to build without the constant anxiety of success. Why is this important? Because most men chase, and they chase hard, Because they're attached to the outcome. They hustle, they scramble, they bend their principles, all in the name of getting that thing, a promotion, a woman's approval, the next big deal. And when it doesn't happen, or worse, when it happens and they still feel empty, they wonder why their effort doesn't feel right. But the masculine man, he understands that true power comes not from getting everything he wants, but from not needing anything so badly that it controls him. He moves, he acts, he works, not because he's desperate for the outcome, but because he is committed to the process. He understands that success isn't about the next win, it's about the next step. This detachment doesn't mean he doesn't care. It means that he cares enough to trust the process and to trust himself beyond what any result can give him. The truth is, when a man stops clinging to the need for a particular result, he frees himself. He frees himself from stress. He frees himself from failure. And most importantly, he frees himself from needing validation to feel whole. He becomes an unstoppable force. Why? Because he no longer bends, breaks, or compromises in pursuit of an outcome. He's focused, yes, but not desperate. He's committed, but not So let's consider this. The man who detaches from outcomes no longer worries about how things will unfold. He's just certain that they will, because he knows he has the ability to handle whatever comes, and that the journey itself is just as valuable as the destination. That's why he doesn't chase. He doesn't run after things with frantic urgency. He knows that whatever is meant for him will come on its own time. And the best part, he doesn't get attached to that time either. He moves with confidence, not because he's sure of the result, but because he's sure of his own power to handle it, whatever it is. The masculine man is detached from the outcome, but fully present in the process. He is masterful in how he shows up, aware that how he lives in each moment shapes his future, not the other way around. Now think about this. What happens when a man who is free from attachment combines that freedom with a sense of purpose that can't be shaken? What could a man like that accomplish? Let's dive into that next. Purpose is the guiding light that keeps a man steady, even when the world around him is in chaos. It's the invisible force that shapes his decisions, directs his energy, and defines his legacy. A man with purpose does not chase, because he knows exactly where he is going. Purpose gives a man clarity. It tells him when to move and when to pause. It shapes his actions, not based on what others expect from him, but on what he expects of himself. And that is the ultimate form of masculine strength. Most men chase because they are lost. They're searching for validation, seeking approval, hoping that if they just get the right job, the right relationship, the right title, they'll finally feel complete. But the man with purpose, he knows that his completion is already within him. His journey isn't about finding something to fill a hole. It's about fulfilling a vision, a mission that was crafted deep within. When a man operates from purpose, he is unshakable. He doesn't need to explain himself to anyone. His actions speak for him. His direction is clear, and everyone around him can feel the certainty in his presence. That certainty is born from purpose. It's born from understanding that whatever the world throws at him, he knows why he's here and what he's meant to accomplish. A man with purpose doesn't waste time chasing fleeting pleasures or temporary validation. He doesn't scramble to fit in or get approval. Instead, he stands in his own truth, with the quiet confidence that only comes when you know you are walking your own path, not someone else. Purpose is powerful because it removes doubt. It replaces fear with conviction. When a man knows his purpose, he becomes unstoppable, not because he has all the answers, but because he knows that he is willing to face any obstacle that comes his way to fulfill his mission. But the beauty of purpose is that it doesn't require constant movement. Purpose knows when to be still. It knows when to wait. And a man with purpose is not afraid of that stillness. He doesn't need to chase, because he knows that his time will come. He trusts that the right opportunities will align when the time is right, because he is moving towards them with unwavering focus and determination. So, what happens when a man's purpose is so strong, so clearly defined, that nothing can divert his attention or sway his action? What happens when a man no longer fears waiting, because he knows that the next step is already unfolding, and all he has to do is remain steady and committed? Let's explore that next. The art of staying centered is the unsung strength of a man who understands his own power. In a world that constantly pushes, pulls, distracts, and demands, being centered is what keeps a man from losing himself. It's the ability to stay true to his core, no matter the chaos around him. You see, life is full of noise. People will tell you who to be. Society will tell you what you should want. Opportunities will come at you like waves, pulling you in 1,000 different directions. But a masculine man doesn't get lost in the storm. He doesn't follow every call. He stays grounded in his own center, knowing that no matter what happens around him, he is the one who decides how he reacts. This is where the power of stillness comes into play. When the world moves fast, when everyone around him is chasing and scrambling, the man who is centered moves slowly, deliberately. He takes a breath before he acts. He doesn't rush into situations without thinking. He is aware of his surroundings, but he is not influenced by them. Being centered is not about being passive. It's about presence. It's the ability to step into any situation with the calm knowing that you are prepared to handle it, that you have everything within you to meet whatever comes. It's the confidence to know that you do not need to chase, because everything you need is already within your reach. It just takes patience, timing, and clarity. And here's the thing: the more centered a man is, the more effective he becomes. He does not waste energy react. He does not waste his strength on things that don't matter. Every action, every word, every decision comes from a place of intention, not impulse. This is what separates the successful from the scat. The successful man understands that power is not about doing more. It's about doing what matters with precision and purpose. When he speaks, people listen. When he moves, things shift. But he doesn't move in haste. He waits, he watches, and when the time is right, he takes the next step. But only after fully understanding the situation. Being centered allows a man to choose how he shows up. He doesn't get swept away by emotions, by the opinions of others, or by fear of the unknown. He simply stays true to his mission, his values, and his vision. And here's the magic of staying centered. It brings peace. Peace because a centered man knows that he doesn't have to chase to get what he wants. He doesn't have to prove his worth. He doesn't have to fight for attention. He already knows who he is, and that knowing gives him the freedom to move through life with calm assurance. But here's the real question: what happens when a man who is centered begins to master his presence, to project it, to command attention with his calm? And what happens when that stillness, that power of being, is combined with clarity of purpose? Let's find out as we go further into that next. When a man becomes clear about his mission in life, it's as if the world suddenly aligns with him. The distractions fade, the noise quiets, and all that remains is the pure focus of a purpose-driven mind. It's in this clarity that he truly finds his strength. A masculine man doesn't chase because he has already decided what he wants. He doesn't scatter his attention on every opportunity that presents itself. Instead, he focuses. He locks in on his mission, his vision, and everything he does from that point forward is aligned with that singular purpose. He understands that time is one of the most valuable assets he has, and so he does not waste it on things that do not serve his end goal. Clarity is the anchor that keeps him grounded, even in turbulent waters. When life presents challenges, he doesn't panic. He doesn't flinch. He pauses, he reflects, and in that moment of stillness, the clarity of his purpose gives him direction. He doesn't need to chase solutions. He knows that with his clarity, the right solutions will come to him. They always do. The masculine man operates with a quiet confidence that comes from knowing exactly where he's headed. He doesn't second guess himself. He doesn't waste energy seeking approval. He's already approved of himself. He's not looking for validation from the world because he's validated his own purpose. When you are clear everything else falls into place. Opportunities will align. The right people will appear. But it's not the chasing that creates these opportunities. It's the focus. It's the decision to stay true to your path, no matter what temptations or distractions may try to pull you off course. And in this clarity, the man who no longer chases becomes magnetic. He attracts what he desires without having to fight for it. He doesn't beg, he doesn't plead, he simply shows up, and everything falls into alignment. You see, clarity brings peace, because when you know your purpose, there's no room for fear or doubt. There's no need for stress. There's only knowing, and that knowing gives you the strength to remain calm in the face of uncertainty. You don't need to chase the result. You trust that as long as you stay on your path, the results will find their way to you. But here's what's even more powerful. What happens when a man, clear in his purpose, begins to serve that purpose with unshakable commitment? What happens when his clarity leads him not just to his own success, but to influence and impact the world around him? This is where the true power lies. Let's move forward and uncover what happens when a man turns his focus inward and outward, and the results are nothing short of transformative. When a man stops chasing, when he centers himself, when he aligns with his purpose and energy, something incredible happens. He becomes a force of nature. His presence alone can shift the dynamics of any room, any conversation, any environment. Why? Because he no longer chases what is outside of him. He commands what is within. This is the final step in the journey of a man who is no longer a follower of circumstances, but a creator of his own reality. When a man stops chasing, he steps into his power. He recognizes that the world doesn't need to chase him. He brings value, and in turn the world gravitates toward him. He doesn't chase recognition. He commands respect. His energy speaks louder than any words he could utter. His character is so undeniable, his presence so magnetic, that people are drawn to him. They want to be around him, learn from him, work with him. And it's not because he forces, it's because he has stopped trying to get something from others, and instead is focused on giving, whether it's wisdom, leadership, or simply his unwavering strength. A man who no longer chases becomes an attractor. He knows that the right opportunities, the right people, and the right experiences will come to him, not because he waits idly, but because he's on a path that is so clear, so purpose-driven, that the world naturally aligns to support him. His energy is now one of magnetism, not desperation. And because of that, everything he touches has the potential to transform, not because he seeks to change others, but because he has changed himself. But this transformation doesn't happen overnight. It requires patience, discipline, and most of all, trust in the process. Trust that by focusing on your own growth, your own clarity, and your own purpose, everything else will follow. The right things at the right time will fall into place. The key is never chasing, never forcing, and always being the man who stands firm in his own truth. So now, think about this. What could happen when this man, who has stopped chasing, decides to create the future he envisions? What could a man like this accomplish in his life, his business, his relationships, and beyond? It's not just about avoiding the chase. It's about stepping into a realm of true, boundless possibility. And the real question remains, are you ready to stop chasing and start commanding the life that was always meant for you?